Okay, hello YouTube new subscribers. It's been a while since I talked about species. I do got a species profile on the way, but what I'm going to talk about, I can't really identify two species since I'm not a snail expert, but I know a bit about snails. So what you're looking at here is a ramshorn snail. I'm pretty sure these are brown ramshorns, and what's actually interesting is they actually kind of change color as they grow. When they get really large, they tend to get pretty dark, like that one. But what's interesting is some of the juveniles, like this guy here, he's actually paler and he actually has little spots on his shell, and then as he matures, he gets darker. Another interesting thing about these ramshorn snails is they actually have red hemoglobin in their bloodstream, unlike, well, they actually have hemoglobin as a respiratory pigment. Some snails don't even have respiratory pigment since they're so slow moving and small that they don't need it. But the ramshorn does, so by having that respiratory pigment, it can pick up more oxygen and it can be a bit more active, even though it's a snail. And another interesting thing about these guys is they actually have a lung-like chamber within their bodies, and they actually breathe air. You know, I hardly ever see them come up to the surface to gulp air. I assume they don't have to do it very often. I'm just not sure if they can breathe underwater or not. Maybe they can do both, but they don't have gills though, so I'm pretty sure they might only be breathing atmospheric air. Also, one thing kind of neat about your ramshorn is usually you only need one ramshorn to start a colony. And I know for sure these ramshorns are asexual because all of them are ascended from this ramshorn right here. I put this ramshorn in this tank quite a few months ago, and it mated with itself since it's a hermaphrodite, and it made a bunch of offspring. And now those offspring are mating with each other, which kind of gross if you think about. But the one thing about that is if you have one ramshorn to start a colony, the colony will grow slower since self-fertilization is less efficient than actual mating. And you will see them mating sometimes. When they do mate, they actually bring their two feet together and they face each other frontwards. Sometimes you see three of them mating. It gets kind of kinky. But that's kind of making me uncomfortable talking about this. Guess I should talk about some other stuff about ramshorns. Now, ramshorns, they probably are the most common pest snail. If you get lots of them, one issue they can pose is that they'll eat soft plants like, I've heard they'll eat anacris, kabamba, and a few of those are soft plants. And as for algae, they seem to eat all types of algae that I've seen, but they don't seem to like the thready, matty algae. They don't seem to be able to eat that. I've seen these guys devour like brown algae and stuff, and like just regular blue-greens, but no thread algae. They won't eat that. Now, to control your ram's horns, what you can do, you can take a piece of like cucumber or a piece of our type of vegetable you put in your tank, and then you wait overnight, and then come back next night. Assuming that piece is still intact, you can take it out, and snails should be attached to it. And if you want to control them with our biological means, you could use fish, such as loaches, cichlids. Cichlids tend to destroy snails, so that's a good control. Larger grammies, they also tend to kill snails. Bears love to kill snails. One thing you don't want to do is use snail killer, though, because it contains like copper and sometimes other types of chemicals which can weaken other invertebrates in your tank, such as your shrimp and stuff, or it can also weaken your plants too. So, and if you do have too many ram's horns and you want to euthanize a bunch of them, what you can do is you can just pick them out, one at a time by hand, or as many you can fit in your hand, and you just take a bunch of really hot water. You put a bunch of really hot water in a bucket, and you throw them in a bucket, and that euthanizes them really quickly. And then if you want, you can remove those dead snails from their shell and use them as food for your fish. And the reason why I suggest using really hot water to euthanize them is because the hot water will kill any parasites that snails are carrying. And that is one issue with these snails, is that they can be a vector for certain parasites, which I have had to deal with. I had to deal with some worms that were brought to my tank by snails. Quite a few years back, though. Well, 2 years back. But I did manage to successfully do that. So, if all you guys have seen my previous video, aquarium snails good or bad, I say that aquarium snails are good. And I'm just going to say that ramshorn snails are good, as long as you don't have too many of them. Right now, this colony is getting pretty big. It's probably approaching well over 50, at least from what I can see. There's probably over 100 of them in here. Just most of them are small. Once they start getting too big, I think I'm just going to get an assassin snail to help bring their numbers down. Next video I'm going to be talking about the Blasian trumpet snail. And then, since I love doing it, I'm going to do a species profile on the Pearl Dano. So thanks for watching. Please rate, comment, and subscribe.